Hello, welcome to our live interview today. My name is Erin Sanavi. I'm a nurse practitioner. I'm a member of the JIVINITI Coalition and co-lead investigator for Project GAIA. I am so excited today for our guest. Today we have Christopher Soul Eubanks. He is a creative and an activist that creates art and media to promote a vegan diet and lifestyle. And so I am going to invite him in. There you are. I'm invited. Sometimes I have glitches with this. There you are.
All right. Am
Hi.
I here? Can you see me?
I can see you. Can you see me and hear me?
I can see you and hear you.
Sick. Well, thank you
Good,
so
good.
much for joining us this morning.
Oh, no problem. Thank you all for inviting me. I know it's a little earlier for you than it is for me.
Yeah, well, where are you right now?
I'm in Atlanta, Georgia.
And so you're on Eastern time. I'm actually in
Yeah.
New York right now, and so I'm
Oh, okay.
time, so it's totally fine. I'm up
Okay, great, great.
way. So anyway, but thank you again for joining us. This
Oh,
is
no problem.
I would love for you to just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself, kind of what inspired you to go vegan and how long you've been vegan, kind of your story.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks again for having me. I've been vegan for a little bit over 5 years, but my journey started way before that. I would say I was a vegetarian for almost a decade from the time I was a teenager. So from around the age of 17 to like my late 20s, I was a vegetarian, but it was mainly just for dietary reasons. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X, which is one of my favorite books. And in it, I found out later on about how his organs were extremely clean when they did his autopsy. So that kind of inspired me to eat healthier because I knew he was a vegetarian.
Yeah.
So I became a vegetarian, and then I just kind of felt out of place for a while. So I would say after that decade of being vegetarian, excuse me, like I said, felt out of place. I didn't really know any other vegetarians, or I didn't really know what veganism was. So I started back eating animal products. And until I saw the film Cowspiracy about 5 years ago, I made the connection that a plant-based diet was in line with my morals. At the time, I was trying to do all that I could to become a better environmentalist, but I didn't realize the impact that eating animals causes on the environment. So I gave up animal products right then and there,
Mm,
but I still wasn't an ethical vegan. It was more so about me just not trying to be a better environmentalist. And over the next 5 or 6 months during that time, I started to research about the ethics of veganism and started to see people doing vegan outreach online. And that's when I completely transitioned into veganism and started doing community organizing and activism. But yeah, I was just born in Ohio, raised in Atlanta, Georgia, love hip hop. I've always been a creative, and yeah, that's kind of my journey and how I became vegan.
oh my gosh, such a powerful story. I mean, it's amazing how, you took it upon yourself to really just read and learn. And I feel like that's how a lot of us have kind of got into this movement and into health is because and I'm a healthcare practitioner and I never even
Mm,
had the power of food. And then of course you mentioned the animals and the environment and the impact and so important. And so thank you for sharing that. So
absolutely.
about your community and what is your vision for your community as a Black vegan influencer, and any projects you're working on or anything like that?
Yeah, I think one of the things that I would like to be is more so an example for people to know that there are people in this space doing this kind of work that look like them, sound like them, and that they can just use as an example to not feel isolated, not feel like there's not any room for them in the animal rights community. I think that's one of the things that I experienced when I first started doing activism is not really having a sense of community in terms of people of color or just people that I were accustomed to knowing and accustomed to being around. I didn't really see much representation. And it's something that still happens today, but I think it's getting better. It's getting addressed a little bit more. So I would just like to let people know that, hey, there are tons of incredible people, just, not me, that are doing work in the animal advocacy space, be it, helping animals directly or, fighting for more animal rights, following a plant-based diet and nutrition. I would just like people to know that there are people of color in this space that are doing incredible work.
It's amazing, and you are doing incredible work. I was looking at saw that you have this new nonprofit, Apex Advocacy. So tell us
Mhm.
about that and your goals with that organization.
Yeah, so Apex Advocacy is something that I started in the summer of this year, I will say. We just launched our social media a couple of months ago, but Apex Advocacy, Apex is an acronym for Animal Protection, Equality, Intersectionality. And what I would like to do is to help people understand how massive systems of oppression not only impact humans, but it also impacts non-human animals. And I think there's a lot of overlap. I think a lot of the same systems of control put people in vulnerable positions in our society that also put non-human animals in vulnerable positions in our society. And I think there's a lot of connections that need to be made. And I think if people are able to make those connections, then they'll be more likely to join the movement or more likely to understand how these massive systems of oppression aren't happening in a vacuum. So one of the things that I want to do is help the animal rights movement become more dominated by people of color, because people of color are the largest group of people on the planet, but we don't honestly have that same amount of weight in the animal rights movement. And I think as a movement, we are going to continue to be limited if we don't have the global majority of the people represented in the movement. So ultimately, the goal of Apex is to make sure that the animal rights movement reflects the actual population of our society and that we have accurate representation in the movement. So our first campaign that we just launched is called Black Vegan Everything. And Black Vegan Everything is a website solely dedicated to Black owned vegan businesses. So blackveganeverything.com, it has right now about 100 businesses in our directory that we highlight. And these aren't just food businesses. These are businesses that do animal rights work, clothing companies, media tech companies, just a wide variety of vegan businesses that are Black owned. So I want people to be able to go to that site and see the diverse and vast array of veganism and how Black people embrace veganism on such a wide variety and in such a large scope. And it's not just something that is food based and something that is nutrition based.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I love that. And thank you for putting in that website. And we'll make sure we put that in the comments because I think, with the holidays coming up, and I think people can go there and buy from Black-owned businesses for a variety of reasons and just to learn more about it. So thank you for that incredible work you're doing. And
Yeah, I have to thank the team, the Apex team. We have an awesome group of people, volunteers right now that are helping to, create our graphic designs, write our content, oversee our social media, and do all of our admin. And I'm kind of, at the helm of it, but it wouldn't have been possible without them.
oh my gosh, fantastic. Well, that's wonderful. Yeah, we'll definitely keep an eye on all of that and collaborate as much as we can on all of your projects.
Absolutely.
So, as you were talking about, we know that groups that have been historically marginalized have been disproportionately affected by disease, chronic disease, disproportionately affected by COVID-19, and also, had poorer outcomes with COVID-19 and increased risk of death. And this includes indigenous populations, Latinx populations, and Black populations. And so we're now starting to see a little bit of COVID nutrition literature emerging that's showing that eating a vegan diet is actually helping people have better outcomes with COVID-19 and less severe. Unfortunately, BIPOC persons tend to be underrepresented in research. That's of course for, due to white supremacy and all the historical institutionalized racism and all of that. And so with Project Gaia, which I know you're partnering with us, so thank you for that. I know we're trying to change that. So why is supporting this project and important to you, and why is it important for people to participate in this type of research?
I think it's important, simply, kind of to add on to what you're saying is that people of color don't get representation in these types of studies and this type of research. I also think, one of the reasons I was really excited to be a part of this is because I think it's something that we all intuitively know. Like, honestly, even if you aren't vegan, eating more plants or eating a plant-based diet is probably healthier for you than not consuming a plant-based diet. And, we have a lot of research that backs that. And I think intuitively, a lot of people know that, eating healthier probably helps fight disease and fights viruses and fights, bad health and things that arise from pandemics and diseases. So I think it's a no-brainer because once we are able to have the research and the data that supports what we're saying, it's not just us saying things emotionally. It's not just us saying how we feel. We actually have the information to support what we're saying. And I think this can go a long way in advancing, the work that we do, animal rights and advancing people's health and people's mindsets. So I think it's very important to actually have that hard data so people can't second guess you or can't really question the validity of what you're actually saying. This is something that I have come to learn when I do vegan outreach. It's not that I always focus on stats and data, but anytime I'm able to talk about stats and data, it just gives more validity to what I'm saying. So I think that's one of the biggest things that really drew me to this project, and it makes me want to help get the word more out about this.
Yeah. Oh, I love that answer. I mean, that's so true. They can't ignore it anymore, right? And especially even at the policy level, we know that Black and Brown communities are targeted, and they put in those junk food restaurants and things like that, less access to healthy food options and things like that. So I agree with you so much. We can't let the powers that be ignore it anymore. So
yeah, and and to add on to that, we see that the story of what COVID is and how it has been created, or how it was formed, as a zoonotic disease. It came from, animals it jumped from animals to humans, and that's in line with other diseases like, mad cow disease and H1N1 and all of these other diseases, swine flu.
Yep.
And this is just another, COVID is just another thing in that lineage. So I think having more information, not only about that, but the more connections that we make, the more valid we become. And we already have the information, the leading scientists and all the research says that this is a zoonotic disease. And now we're probably about to start to go to the next phase of that, showing that the things that we eat also impact how this impacts our body.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I really appreciate that context of the intersectional approach and how it's all interlinked, right? So, and lastly, if you could give one piece of advice for people wanting to either go vegan or get involved in vegan activism, what would that be?
Oh, well, I don't know if I want to limit it to just one thing.
Oh, many things as you want. You have all day.
Yeah, I would say if anyone is trying to transition into a vegan lifestyle, I would say find community. Join Facebook groups, join meetup groups, just search for people, because, one of the things is that when I first became vegan, I didn't know a lot of vegans, or I didn't know where they were, or, what they were doing out in the world. But I would say once I started to actively seek out more vegan activities, more vegan events, then I began to meet a lot more people. So, help, whatever can help find that community will make that transition easier, because you have other people that you can talk to. They can refer restaurants to you. They can talk about recipes. And it's just easier when you have a sense of community. Like I said, I stopped being vegetarian for over a decade because I didn't have a sense of community. You know, I felt like I kind of held on as long as I could, but ultimately I didn't have that support. So, and that was a totally different thing. So, you know, being vegan is a little bit more, it takes a little bit more than just being a vegetarian. You know, your options aren't exactly the same. It's a different path.
Right.
So the more help that you have along that path, the better, and the more likely you are to make those connections. In terms of activism, I would say one of the first things is to understand that you can do activism at your own pace. You don't have to do things that are uncomfortable to you. There are certain types of activism, certain types of actions that I don't prefer to do, and there are some that I love. I love doing vegan outreach. I don't want to say love going to vigils, but I appreciate the impact that going to vigils can have. So I'm more inclined to go to a slaughterhouse and film and document what's happening to these animals as they are being transported into the slaughterhouse. Now, some things that I'm not so comfortable with are doing things like disruptions, where you go into a public space and you protest inside of a restaurant, a grocery store, a clothing shop. So that's not my personal favorite type of activism, but I still do them from time to time. It's just I know what I like to do, I know what I don't like to do, so I just balance it out through that. And there's a wonderful program called the Animal Activism Mentorship that I'm involved with, and they give you a free activist mentor for 3 months. So they help you, you know, start your first events, you know, get people to your events. Any questions that you might have, they help you for 3 months totally for free. And they can extend a mentorship if, you know, if you just don't feel comfortable doing activism yet. We can refer you to people. We can connect you with other activists in your community and help you become a better activist. So that's one of the things that I wish I had. I wish I knew these things when I first became vegan and when I first started doing activism. It would have made the journey a lot easier.
Well, I love that. Oh my gosh, you just named so many resources. Thank you. I'm convinced, and I was talking to Nivi Jaswal, my co-lead investigator for this project and founder of the Versa and Divinity, about it. I was like, I think it's people like you that are really truly going to save this world that we're in, and I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for all these great resources. We'll make sure to link them up in the comments, and just we really appreciate everything you're doing and all the great resources you provided for people. And yeah, please stay in touch with us.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here. And one last thing, I love the way the light is shining on your face. It is just like a beautiful glow.
It's a little because I'm like, well, it's yeah. I'm trying to figure out the lighting in this hotel room, and thank you.
I think it's perfect. I think it's perfect.
Now, and I don't know, but it's a sunny day in New York. But thank you for joining us from Atlanta and for everything you're doing.
No problem. Thank you. And thank you all for the work that you're doing.
All right, you take care.
All right. I